We are here today with Clare Dubois, the founder of TreeSisters. TreeSisters, I am a tree sister, gladly and proudly. We have a tree brother over here. TreeSisters has a goal of planting 1 billion trees a year. Okay, I'm going to try not to cry during this interview because this cause is so incredibly essential at this time. And we are with the woman who had the vision to create it and actually had the courage to create it. So thank you so much for being here with us, Clare. I mean, this is really deeply an honor.
A joy to have you here, Clare. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. And I'll cry, so you're very welcome to join me.
Okay, well.
Most likely it happens in most interviews, so just don't worry about it.
Awesome. So everyone, along with your pen and journal and notebook, bring tissues.
At least one.
Yes. So we'd love to start by asking you, did you have a time where you changed everything professionally and reinvented yourself?
So in my early 20s, I started having nightmares about climate change. And so I'm 46, I think now, something like that. And in my early 20s, there were no more clouds in my dreams. And I was completely alarmed. Nobody was talking about climate change. It was already happening. But there were no more clouds. And I'm English. And so we do clouds in a huge way. We do rain in a huge way. And I would go out and I was starting to get obsessed with clouds, because there was a part of my reality in which there was a future with no more clouds, which means no more rain, which means no more food. And I was just like, oh my God, what's happening? And these dreams kept coming. Fast forward 15 years or so, I'm at this workshop. And I'm already an environmentalist, but mostly I'm working as an intuitive and a coach and various other things in personal development. And our little group was asked to do a theatrical representation of the Rape of the Earth. And I was asked to play the Earth. And so I was bundled up in all of these, everybody's clothes. Like I was a huge bag woman, just like hats and scarves and coats and all the rest of it. And I was put on a throne and I was handing out cups of tea. And basically they stripped me, they mined me, they deforested me, they poisoned me, they gouged me, they ripped off my clothes. Like I was just all the time, like just being ripped. And I'm handing out cups of tea. Because as we are destroying our world, she's still providing. We're still eating. She's giving. And at the point that I was naked, literally naked, apart from a sock, I wailed my most blood-curdling, I'm dying wail, and like threw myself on the floor. And while I was on the floor, my pod was supposed to have a little community moment, go, oh, wouldn't it be best if we didn't trash our planet? Oh, let's put it back together again. And I'm lying on the floor. And all I can hear is the nursery rhyme, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And my world was just going, oh my God, we don't get to put a planet into therapy. Oh my God, we don't get a second chance. Oh my God, when the feedback loops have started, they've started. Oh my God, and I was just like, going into, and I went freezing cold, absolutely like freezing cold. And they put me back on my throne and they dressed me up again. And I'd like died. Something in me had just died. And I looked up and the whole room was sobbing. And I was kind of like, I had to be taken back to the audience because I couldn't get up. And I watched the rest of these ritual theaters completely gone somewhere else. And then there was to complete the evening, there was a present giving ceremony, and everybody had brought something and wrapped it, and they had no names on, and they would just be handed out. And somebody handed me this thing, and I opened it, and it was a little blue book with a single cloud on the front, and it said, "You can change the world."
Wow.
Which makes me want to cry again. It always makes me want to cry. And I started crying. I was just staring at this cloud, and I started crying, and I couldn't stop. And I was like that sort of wild sobbing where there's another part of you going, "Whoa, remove yourself from this room at this, immediately." Like, and I sobbed for about 3 hours. It was one of those like life-changing cries where you realize that your paradigm, the whole ground of your life, just got pulled out from underneath you. And what was happening inside me was, part of me was just going, this world is going to die. Are you going to sit around and do nothing? You know, what do you most love? Like, I love this planet with so fiercely. I have given my life like this. I love this world. I love everything so much. I love the people in it. It's like, it's me. Like, I am the love of this world. That's what I am. And the other part of me was going, you're nothing. You can't do anything. How could you even think about it? If you even try, you'll fail. You don't know how to do a single thing. There's just one of you. How can you be so egocentric? God, you're so over responsible. Like, grrr, on this side. And this part of me is going, but the world's dying. If I don't do something, how can I live with myself? How can you even think like that? And it was just, and then there was a third part of me splitting off going, wow, so this is why nobody's doing anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is the disease of the world. We're too terrified to feel the magnitude of it. We're paralyzed in our self-deprecation and our insecurity and our fear of failure. And so I'm splitting all over the place. And then by the time I kind of put myself back together again, it was like, right, that's it. My life is given. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to let my insecurity control me and keep me small? And know that I had an opportunity to live a fully meaningful life, but I was too damn scared to have a go in case I failed. Therefore, I'm not going to. So I'm just going to sit here and watch the planet go to shit. Or am I going to give it all I've got? So I didn't know what to do. Like, all I knew was that my life had to change. And there's this really interesting thing about changing your life. You know, when you suddenly have like this grand epiphany, is that doesn't mean it's the right time to try and do it. It just means that you've realized that you're going to do it. And in my life, what I've consistently done is made the leap before I'm ready, before I've grown the muscles, before the circumstances created all the creative components that you need for it to happen. So you can do this like gallant run off a cliff and leap and then just crash.
Splat.
Like, oh, that was really painful. What shall I do? You know, go back to the top of the hill and try again and crash. And so one of my pieces of advice for anybody listening is, if you have a bright idea, don't automatically do it. Like, actually, like if a seed has been planted in you, understand that there's a germination phase. And you will know when that germination phase has peaked into it's popping above ground, because suddenly everything in your life will start moving you naturally into alignment with that thing. But if you try and force life to be ready for you, it's going to be miserable. So I've done miserable brilliantly. Like, that's been one of my specialities. The second thing, this was the beginning of TreeSisters, and it's huge. So I had at this point been working in southern India for 3 years on and off as the UK coordinator for a huge agroforestry initiative. So I knew there's a whole backstory about how I knew I was supposed to be working for trees, like bringing trees and money together, but I didn't know how, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that was what I was supposed to be doing. And I'd found this initiative in southern India, and I thought that was it. It was brilliant. It was spiritual. It was social equity. It was just beautiful. And they were aiming to reforest Tamil Nadu with 114 million trees in 10 years or something. And it was the first thing that I'd seen that made sense in the scale of, you know, everything that I was witnessing in the world going on. So I threw myself into that. And all the time I was thinking, right, I need to distill the social strategy, bring it back to the West, and find somebody to do a reforestation revolution in the West. Like, if this works over there in a caste culture, it has to be able to work where we are. So I just need to find the person. So I'll distill the social strategy, I'll give it to them, and then they'll do it. So the day after I distilled the social strategy, I'm supposed to be going to London to hand it to a communications team who would start setting this thing on. And instead I had the car crash that gave me TreeSisters. So I skidded on ice, and which is a really interesting metaphor. It took me years to see it like this: skidding on ice, banging against the sides of the road, heading for not a cliff, but like a really steep thing that might as well have been. And instead of hitting it, a tree stopped me. So it's like a metaphor for humanity being all over the shop. And reforestation is it's a core thing that can stop us going over the edge.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hit the tree. There was a blinding flash of white light, 2 words in the light, the experiment. And then a voice starts talking to me and says, humanity is running out of time. It's not over yet. It's going to take everyone rising to the challenge to get through what's coming. The single greatest threat facing humanity is fear of failure, but you can get over fear of failure by calling everything you do an experiment, because you can't fail an experiment, you can only learn, which I thought was brilliant. And I said at the time, so what's the experiment? And back came, you have to reforest the tropics within 10 years. At which point my life flashed before my eyes. And this is what's interesting about your question, because I had my life flash before my eyes in terms of everything that had got me to where I was then, realizing that life was saying, actually, it's not somebody else you're giving this job to. This is your job. And going, oh, I see all these dots. Suddenly it all made sense. And then I had a precognition. I went straight past and into the future to who it was going to require me to be to pull this off, or even to have a go.
Wow.
Because I was a total loner, a complete introvert, not technologically savvy at all, never been on social media. I'd never worked in an organization, so never had a team. And I was being asked to start a charity, start a movement, be a team manager, understand how to run an organization, do fundraising, and it was just like I suddenly, be out front, be a networker.
Yeah.
And it was literally like, to do this, you're going to have to turn yourself inside out and become a completely different person. And everything that you are now is like a response or a reaction to your life thus far, which was a very victim-y life. Mine was very persecuted. And everything that's in front of you is the opposite of that. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stay an apology and not have a go because you're so frightened, because you're so insecure, because you've been hammered and you believe that you deserve that somehow, and all the shit that we do with ourselves around our stories? Or are you going to say, okay, that's one version of me. How about trying on a completely different version of me? And so this was the cusp of the biggest reinvention, because it was like literally walking through a portal and becoming somebody else.
I have so many questions around this, if you're open to it, but please.
Go for it.
Well, when you say the word victim, I don't think a lot of people identify with a victim, but so many of us are living in that victim state and thinking, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, other people have the power over me, other people can do it, I can't, I'm limited, So
victim to their thoughts.
Right, and you were in that state, and then you could see the future you, that version of you. How could somebody listening who's like, yep, that's me, I'm caught in that right now in the victim state, how do you actually, how could they open up to that potential, that what is it? I forgot what the word is, but basically their essential nature. What is it?
I said insanity.
Insanity. But it's really what we're here to become, right? Like that, the butterfly version of the caterpillar.
It's a choice. It's a choice. It's excruciating. I can't sit here and say this is easy, and it will depend upon how hammered you've been.
Yeah.
Like if your programming is like mine, which was you shine, you die, then I had an incredibly destructive father who basically taught me that any way in which he competed with me, but he was violent with it, and any way that I stepped forward as a woman was a source of profound shame for him, meant he was less. And so the only way he could bring himself forward was to ensure that I was completely squashed. And so my survival depended upon my staying squashed. So, and that's a lot of women out there, actually.
Yes.
Different stories, a lot of women. So that requires one to understand at the deepest level that as you decide to shine your light at all, as you decide to let your energy rise, you're going to be rising through and potentially dissolving, alchemizing, transforming the bedrock of all the beliefs that you created to explain your life to yourself, which will have involved, yes, I am shit, otherwise why would they have done that to me? And I'll have to believe that I'm shit because then I can handle what's being done to me, because then it makes sense. So all these ways in which we split off and we disconnect from ourselves. Ultimately, for me, it was, okay, I don't know how to do this. I felt like I was at the foothill. I was like staring up at the Himalayas. Like for me to become this person, I did not feel like I had the strength, the capacity, the knowledge, that anything. What did it was I love the world too much to let my insecurity, and I'm going to cry again. I mean, all I can say is what's true for me. Something had to matter more. Like, something has to matter more than your fear of your pain. And something has to matter more than your fear of your friends turning around and telling you that you're insane. Or your life, the people around you saying, no, don't talk about the climate because then we have to look at it and we don't want to. Therefore, we're going to persecute the shit out of you so that we can perpetuate a world that is dying. And here's what I believe. I think that inside the part of ourselves that we are the most frightened of is the truth of our nature, like the thing where we have split off from ourselves. We split off because that was our light, and at some point our light has been shunned, and we've to make sense of it, we've then shunned ourselves. And so the journey home to our brilliance, which I believe is in every single one of us, that we are essentially brilliant, magnificent, exquisite beingnesses that are part of this creation, which is exquisite. And the depth of destruction in our world is a reflection of the level of disconnect from that. So we're all on this journey home. And our misery will point us there. Our depression will point us there. Our dissatisfaction in our lives will point us there. If you're sitting there and you are unhappy and unfulfilled and you do not feel given and you don't feel like you're doing something that makes sense of you, or that like pulls you into your fullness, or you're making a killing doing something that destroys the world rather than making a living doing something that actually restores the world. And if you're not allowing yourself to own up to your deepest longings, your longings will take you there. And ultimately you will know whether you are living the life that you're supposed to be living. And if you're not, then letting yourself own up to the fact is the first step. Letting yourself realize that you don't want to be honest with yourself because you don't know where that's going to go. And then making friends with that, and then making friends with not knowing where it's going to go, making friends with risking your world, like just going, I don't know. Okay, we don't know. And then beyond that, opening to what if your longings and your deeper desires and or your fear are pointing you towards the thing that actually will make sense of you, that you're afraid of, because it will light you up and it'll make you visible and it'll ask you to be the you that you deep down know that you are, but you're terrified to even try. And the only way I know is to make the choice, is to say, do I want to live the life that I was born to live? Do I want to risk discovering who I am, which is going to be almost completely different to who we're actually being? Like we're being versions of ourselves that are reactions to our past and are sort of roboticized, conditioned, acceptable, culturally, created thingamybobs that we happen to call human, but we haven't got a damn clue what a human being is actually. We use a fraction of our brain. We operate as if we're superior to our planet when we're part of our planet. When we can shift our awareness and our perspective to open to merge with all of creation, we have not a clue what we are capable of. Not a clue. So let something matter enough to pull you across the bed of nails that are your stories and your insecurities, and fundamentally understand that everything you're terrified of has got a silver or a gold lining that's waiting to show you who you are. And that life ultimately is compassionate and is trying to always let you know the more that you are, even in the moments where it seems to be all going wrong, it's still pointing somewhere. And if you can not take it personally and just look, a path will open up.
Wow.
So I'm, with all your brilliant sharings and experience, and really choosing to really not just step in the fire, but in a way live in the fire, and the discomfort in living in the fire. Sharing with those out there who, just the idea of stepping into a purpose or something bigger than them that is in the fire. What could you share with them that would make it worth it for them?
Make it sound remotely attractive.
Well, I mean, in a way, like what was it? I mean, the misery before, because it's a different kind of misery. Like it's a comfortable misery out of the fire. It's totally miserable, but it's comfortable.
Right.
And then moving into that fire and just living in that, like what keeps, I mean, besides the why, the why is so important, but what's that draw that makes it worth it for you, or could make it worth it for somebody else?
For me, I don't know how to be polite. I'm so fucked off with the patriarchal experiment, excuse my language. And that's not me saying I hate men.
Yeah.
It's me saying the mindset that we have inherited that means that the feminine in all her forms is considered less than. So, 3% of global giving goes to women in the environment. They are the source of all life. 3%, less than 1% goes to women. So that was my childhood, obviously, with a patriarchal nightmare of a father, which steered me onto this path right royally, as we say in England. It was so completely destructive for me, that childhood. And there's, I was this bright, shiny, beautiful, highly intelligent creature that just got sat on until it was like nothing left. And I'm not satisfied with that as a life experience. Like, I'm not going to be satisfied until I have explored every facet of myself and brought it into light, and I'm living as a completely unashamed, irrepressible, undeniable force of nature, because that's what a woman is. And nor am I going to be satisfied until everybody that is around me, or that I'm working with, or that is part of TreeSisters, has got that invitation so deeply seated in them that anything less than that is going to be a half life. Like that, I am so fierce about it, because we are womankind. Like, it's enough already. Like, it's enough. And it's enough of us trying to be men in order to outmen the men. That's not it either. Like, we've got to rediscover what it means to be females. And so there's this kind of, I had a moment, it was really interesting. I stood up on stage at Emerging Women last year, and I put a dress on for the first time on stage to actually make myself visible. And I had a complete shock, because I'd put on so much weight from the last time I put the dress on. I had this enormous cleavage, and I'm like, can I go out in public with my, with my breasts hanging out? And I'm just like, I'm going to do it. Like, when am I going to stop being just ashamed and like this? And I got off the stage. It was amazing. It was the first time I ever was on stage and did not die of stage fright and then get off and feel like a contorted mess on the floor that somebody needed to like put in a loony bin. And afterwards I was thinking, God, I feel really strange. What is it? And I realized that I had this moment in the car crash, the premonition. Like, I was standing there as the version of myself that I thought I'd never be.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I got there. Like, and I still have a million miles to go, because I'm still like a complete work in progress. But I'd got to the stage where I could stand visibly unashamed and inspire a whole room to like roar from the seat of their pants and like join me. And it was like, yeah, I'd hoped that there would be a point where where my fear would be so diminished that the fullness that I am could come through.
Mhm.
And that's what I want. And that's what carries me forward. So every time I hit fear of rejection, which is a huge one of mine, insecurity, getting it wrong, um, being exiled, that's another great one of mine, like the hideous patterns that we carry.
Yes.
What I realize is it's another opportunity to burn through that layer and create more space. And as I create more space inside myself, so I am able to include more of the world, include more people, have vastly more compassion, like grow into something that is freer and freer and freer, because all the things that I've been trying to avoid in myself, instead of avoiding them, I'm just embracing them. And so
Mm.
it's, saying yes to yourself is a path of liberation, like
Yeah.
self-liberation, really.
And I'm hearing the fires that you're describing, I'm hearing them synonymous with the word embrace. And that, like, every time you use the word embrace, it's that embrace of everything that you are is kind of burning off those layers that have held you back from being the diamond that you are. We are sitting with a diamond right now. Like, it's, everything we do is around something. We use the diamond as a metaphor. And it's very rare that we're like sitting with someone who's a diamond. Like, you are a
From
brilliant example of what a diamond is. And I want to share, a diamond is born from the fire, right? There's no way for that to happen without all that heat and pressure. We're in Ojai, California right now, and we just got,
slammed by the
slammed, and
fires.
we had
No
to
trees left.
evacuate our house. Everything almost, 1,000 structures burned. For me, you're a really important figure in our world for me. And that is because, so seeing what's happening on our planet, that's not
Go
a
on, cry. Go
okay.
on, join me.
So hard.
Join me.
Here's the thing. What you're doing is something I dreamt of doing a few years back, but I realized I had no idea how to do it. And I sat with the land and I said, Mama Nature, trees have saved me. The redwoods saved me, pulled me out of massive depression, all these many years ago, and they saved me, literally. They were my best friends that helped me remember who I am. So when I had this drive to plant trees and do all of this, I had no idea how to do it. But I sat with the land one day and I said, what do I do? How do I do this? How do I help you? What the land said was, please just sit and connect with me. Start here. Just connect with me. Be present with me. The answer will arise. Just stay here. And my mind was like, you wimp. You're not doing anything about it. Da, 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 da. Then I found your video. I think it was about 6 months later. I found your video, blew me away. I was bawling. You were crying on the video. The whole audience was crying. Everyone was just like, who is this force of nature? Like, and with all of your honesty too, everything you were sharing, just like you are now, which is such a teaching for me and for all of us, that the power of leadership is to just be all that you are, right? So now here we are, and I'm so grateful to you because I realized, okay, well, I can fuel TreeSisters. I can be a tree sister, and we can put, some of our company's income into TreeSisters and into a Billion Trees campaign and all of this, which is incredible to join forces. Of course, that's how it would turn out. And I have a question. So we're in Ojai. The fires burned through, and
the
that
rain is not here, obviously.
Right. And the fires were very much a wake-up call on another level, because I've been slowly moving down this path, and she just was relentless, and she was circling our town, the fires, in a great.
I was watching. I was just horrified.
Yeah, I mean, the fires were encroaching from all angles, and we said goodbye to our home, said goodbye to everything, pretty much assumed our town and everything was going to be gone. Long story short, the 80-mile winds did not come that night, which were supposed to just blaze through and burn everything down. I think prayer is powerful. A lot of people praying. But when she moved through, it left a new realization behind and a wake-up call, which is why it felt so important for us to invite you onto this interview series and hear what you have to share about this. I'm curious what you think our Earth is communicating through those fires. And how, because it's not just the fires, it's the hurricanes, it's it's all of this. And how can we, what does this have to do with our businesses? How can we, you said something making a living doing something that restores the earth. Like, are those two possible? Can we make a living? Like you said, money and trees, connecting those two, which is profound to me. I want to hear more about that. Can we make a living doing something that actually restores the earth? And how? How can we do that?
I'm in 100 different places at once, and I'm also highly emotional. Because I'm surrounded. I mean, we're leaving here in a couple of days, but this place burnt 2 years ago, so I'm surrounded by regeneration, actually, but colossal devastation. And I went whitewater rafting last year, and the night that we started on the river, there was a thunder and lightning storm, and 21 fires set off. It's like the beginning of the big Californian fires in the northern California set off, and we were rafting through fire. I'm British. I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
I like mud, and then watching what's going on down with you. Last year, I spent quite a bit of time in Colorado and came face to face with the depth of destruction to the trees that's happening in Colorado, like 800 million trees dead. And then you're talking about, that's just one part of the Rocky Mountain forest chain, of which the entire forest chain of the west coast of America is dying. And it's a very interesting process for me. This isn't what you asked, but it's an interesting process for me because I love it all so much. And it's not just the trees that are going. 80% of the coral's gone. The fishes are going, like everything's going. The species are going, like the bees are going, the birds are going. At home, all sorts of birds that were our most common birds are verging on extinction, and humanity's going on like, oh, have you got a new iPhone? Oh, and oh, technology will save us, and oh, it's not as bad as you think. And the governments have had so many chances to put humanity on a different course, and we're acting as if our economy is not based on our ecology. We're acting as if our economy can exist in a world that is dead and dying, and it can't. And that whole thing is a reflection of patriarchal consciousness, because the shadow masculine, like the masculine, is, wants to build and grow and create and is spectacular, but the masculine has to be in dynamic relationship with the feminine. The feminine is our felt relationship to everything, our felt connection. And when we feel connection, then we will live appropriately to that connection. But in a world that has severed the feminine, we can't feel the connection from which to respond appropriately.
Yes.
So a world, a shadow patriarchal or a shadow masculine world, which is doing all the growth without any of the connection, will then want to measure its growth, and the measure of that is money. And so money has become the center of all things, not life. Money has become the false god, not life. And, why Tree Sisters? Why not tree everybody? I tried to do tree everybody, but they wouldn't let me. Why Tree Sisters is because women are the womb carriers and earth is womb. And unless we figure out how to put the womb of creation back at the center of everything instead of money, and future generations instead of bank accounts, then it's over, essentially. So how's nature reacting? Nature is destabilizing because we're heating her up. We're raping her and we're heating her up. And there's only so long, if you're talking about a mother, that you can take from her more than you give to her, slice her up, cut her up, torture her, ignore her, expect her to keep giving to you. She's gonna do this.
Exactly. Exactly.
We're stripping the tropical forest belt. That's why we're trying to reforest the tropics. That is her cooling mechanism. The profound interrelationship between the flying rivers of water that provide rainfall that come out of the rainforest, the rate of ice melt that is supposed to happen in the poles to allow the ocean currents to do what they're supposed to do. Like all these profoundly fragile systems that help the weather to operate in a certain way, we're shredding them. And so when you shred them, when you pump vast amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere to heat her up, and you simultaneously strip 15 billion trees a year, which are her mechanism for locking that back down again, then, you know, we're doing what warms us, and we're shredding what cools us. So of course the carbon is dissolving into the oceans, the corals are dying. I mean, but we know, and we're doing it anyway.
Yeah, and that's what's drawn me to what you're doing, because also that you're not just planting trees, you're planting tropical trees, which happen to grow how much faster than let's say an oak, or, you know.
Well, it depends where you are, but one of the reasons being is there is a year-round growing season in the tropics. So they tropical trees on average sequester something like 3 times as much as a temperate tree, for example. If you're then planting mangroves, it's another 30% on top of that.
Right.
We're not just doing tropical reforestation, we're doing feminine empowerment. That's the uniqueness of TreeSisters, is we're daring to say the feminine principle, women and nature, like how we treat the life givers, where we put value. We've got to steer it away from money, and actually we need to rethink money. That's not going to be my part in the world, but what I can say is the consumer culture that we are is as a result of the disconnection from the feminine principle. We can only do what we're doing. We're not bad. We're just disconnected and misguided, and we've been conditioned to think this is the way, and it's not the way. So we're going to have to rethink ourselves. Is it possible to shift from being a consumer species to a restorer species? Yes, it's a choice. It's a choice to reimagine ourselves from, okay, do I want to be part of a species that only takes from nature, trashes it, gives nothing back, watches it go wild and do nothing? Is that my choice? I know that my children are not going to have a future, and their children probably aren't even going to be born at this point. That's where we're going. Am I satisfied with that? Just because that's what everybody else is doing, and everybody's comfortable doing that, and everybody's playing the denial game, right? There's one choice. I call that mother number one, psychotic mother. That is Gaia no longer able to provide seasons, food, groundwater, any form of stable anything that we can rely on. That's one mother that you can choose to put your children into her care. Then there's mother number two, who we go, oh my God, we've got this incredible opportunity. What if in my lifetime I could give back more than I've taken? Because your house came out of nature, everything you've eaten came out of nature, everybody you love came out of nature, your car came out of nature, these planes come out of nature, everything has come out of the earth, right? How do we start to restore the natural systems that will re-stabilize our world? And then we maybe have a chance of having mother number two who can actually take care of future generations, but we have to choose that.
Exactly.
So 3 steps. So if you could encourage people to take 3 steps today,
even that first step,
but the first step, but then 2 more after that can really be something that an average person who's just beginning their path on this, or starting to do little things, what are 3 things that they can do to make an impact?
Or starting their business and wanting to make it sustainable.
Well, that's a really hard question, and I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, but what I'd say is, and this may sound completely counterintuitive, but first of all, we need to accept that we don't want to change. So point number 1, get honest about your denial. Get honest about the fact that we really like having what we want when we want it, and to hell with the consequences, to hell with where it came from, who suffered in the creation of it, what land died, what rivers got poisoned, what communities were in sweat labor, like all of that stuff that we don't want to think about, because we just want this thing. And we want it now, and we want our houses hot, and we want air conditioning, and we want to dry our clothes in tumble dryers even though it's 90 degrees outside, and we want to drive our gas guzzler because we feel safe in it. Like all of that stuff that we don't want to look at. Number 1 is, are you willing to address the fact that you don't want to look at it? Because what you might need to have to do is have a huge tantrum, or a huge crying fit, or like rage against the machine, like rage against that, because that's the fundamental sticking point, is that before you can lubricate anything else, you have to understand where we're stuck. And we're stuck in, I don't want to change, I'm frightened of changing, it's too uncomfortable to change, I don't have the energy to change, like the million different excuses. Like, we need to go there. Like, you just need to go there. One of the things that you can do to help yourself with that is think about what you want your kids to be able to take for granted. Like, how safe, how much do you love the future generations, those that are going to come from you? Like, and what sort of world do you want to provide for them? Because if you're willing to actually face the level of horror that we're heading towards, and it's really bad, actually really bad, then maybe you will be prepared to say it's not about giving them a brilliant education or making sure that they've got enough money when they're 18. It's about how much money can I possibly give towards the levels of ecological restoration that might help stabilize the world, and how can I walk into my business and actually start challenging us on looking at all our consumption levels, and the fact that the office lights stay on all night, or the fact that we're not examining our supply chains, or, you know, if you own a business, you've got profound possibility to be able to just help steer a completely different course. If your business is one that is just taking from the earth in a really, really overt way, can you let yourself acknowledge that just because that's been normal from until now, that actually we can't continue that way anymore? And so if you can't get away from taking, you need to seriously implement giving back.
That's a great one, actually. So if someone's stuck in that habit, they can at least neutralize it by giving back in a big way. So,
well, and this is why, you know, this is why the simplest version of TreeSisters is you make it normal for every single person to start giving back through trees. And why trees? Because every single day when you flick on a switch, you're warming the planet. Whether you're making a cup of tea, or you're driving your car, or you're listening to music, or whatever you're using energy for, you're warming the planet. And therefore, to not be actively cooling it simultaneously is actually a form of insanity. When you're watching it what's coming down, and you're going, yeah, no, I'm just going to continue emitting, and I'm not going to do anything to clean it up. It's like,
this is so good. And what people don't know is that, like, TreeSisters is so, people can get in at $10 a month. And I can't tell you, when I see that come in every month, like, I feel so good when the membership payment goes out, just to know that you have created this system for all of us to contribute into, and you're the one doing all the work with your team, and you're giving us this opportunity to make it really simple to contribute and feel good about what, you know, we're doing. So I do have a question. In a sentence or two, this is like,
do you honestly think I'm capable?
Well, you must.
Have I shown any capacity to say anything succinctly on this call?
You're perfect.
Well, if it's but if you had every ear on the planet and you wanted to say something to them from your heart, what would you want every person to know?
We're worth saving. And if you're alive now, it's because your soul understands that you have a core part to play in the biggest awakening that humanity has ever had to face. And if you don't give yourself that opportunity, then I believe you're missing out on one of the most fundamental evolutionary leaps that this planet will ever have been granted as an opportunity. And you don't have to understand who you are or what you are. In fact, it's almost better if you don't. It's almost better if you are brave enough to try and forget what you think you are and open yourself up to life and just say, okay, show me what I am. Because then if you are permeable to existence, then existence can come in and plant dreams, seed ideas, cause you to become awake to things, help you notice things that actually immediately start to steer you in a different direction, because our world is so beautiful. Like just let yourself feel how beautiful this world is, and whether or not you're satisfied to just let it go to hell in a handbasket because you couldn't be asked to discover how incredible you are, you know. And if you like, giving money for trees is a no-brainer. It's something every single person can do that makes a genuine difference and changes lives. For us, it's in Madagascar, India, Brazil, Nepal, Cameroon, Kenya, probably somewhere else, can't remember in this moment. That you're transforming lives over there. You're protecting and critically endangered species. You're getting people out of indentured slavery in Madagascar. The projects that we've got are beautiful, and they're highly vetted, and they're really good. And you can be doing that. You can be changing lives over there, whilst over here you're trying to figure out what you're for.
Yes.
Whilst you're trying to look at your life and go, okay, how do I make these changes? You know, $25 a month plants over 700 trees a year.
Wow.
You know, we've got women who are giving $100. There's a woman giving $400. You know, there's this thing called water carriers, which are women who, like what you want to be, who always want to, like, whatever money they bring in, they want to contribute a part back. You know, to me, tithing, 10% to the sacred. Like, we have to start including ecological restoration in every single transaction. That's what the new economy needs to have, restoration embedded into every transaction, so that we're not taking without giving back.
Claire, thank you.
You've won our hearts today, not just mine and Veronica's. You already had Veronica's, but you have mine and many, many people out there. So may this continue to just grow and flourish. And really, thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, deeply thank you. And to those of you wondering about TreeSisters, you can also go to
billiontrees.me. Billiontrees.me is the campaign website. So this is a bit confusing, and we're trying to figure out what to do about this. Billiontrees.me is the campaign website where we launched the concept of getting to 1 billion trees a year. We need 2 million women to step in. When we get, is it 2 million women? Yeah, 2 million women will basically get us to 1 billion trees a year. 2 million women and men. I mean, and anybody in between.
Yes.
It's just all of us. Like, we need that many of us will do that. But that's 1 billion trees a year is a vast amount. But then remember that we're losing 15 billion a year.
So we got more to do.
Yeah, but you are on the leading edge of pulling us out of this crisis, and all of us can and are doing this together. And what I appreciate is the honesty in which you brought this interview forward. I'm awake now. I'm more like awake to what in the world needs to happen in order to be more alive in myself and make sure that our mother, our planet is breathing again, thriving again, flourishing again. So to everyone, may this really reach you, and not just for everything that TreeSisters and Clare is bringing forward into our worlds, but for the mission that you have in your heart. May the power that this priestess is just, embodying remind you of your own power. I know she's doing that for me and so many. So thank you, Clare. To everyone watching, may this be your year that you live. Be brave, make a choice, like Clare says. Live your authentic, prosperous purpose.